Hello everyone and welcome to the other game Ubisoft made using the UbiArt engine, Valiant Hearts The Great War.
Huh. Based off of World War One.
A lot of informations like letters, mementos, stuff like that from World War One, both from the few veterans who were still alive and their descendants, and reconstructed a series of events that happened using fictional characters living through them.
Interesting.
There you go. It already has the disclaimer. So
August 1st, 1914.
I'll mention this later.
After the assassination of Prince Franz Ferdinand of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the German Empire.
You know, now that I think about it, Child of Light wasn't that also based off of Austria?
France
Yeah.
is
I wonder if this is loosely tied in.
A few hours after the announced of the
This game will
the UbiArt game universe.
This game will focus mostly entirely on the Western Front, the one between France and Germany. The other major countries involved here, i.e. Italy, Russia, and Austria, will not be tackled, sadly.
Oh well.
But I will still provide a bit of explanation of what we were doing in the meantime. Our story begins with one of our protagonists being basically not deported, but escorted outside the country because he's an imported German.
Oh.
So basically, all German citizens were basically told to go back to their country before the war properly started.
That won't backfire in any way, I'm sure. Several days later.
They tell. But since, conscription was really important for France, even older people were asked to join the army. And this is this ties to one of our other main protagonists. Yeah.
A few days after Karl was deported, the war was hungry for more and took away Emil as well.
Emil, there you go. That's what he's
So do we later find out that Karl was, German, or are we supposed to, infer that?
No, they just told us now.
I mean, that he was German. They just said he was deported.
What fate?
No, they did it in
The narration told us it was.
Yeah. Anyway, the game in itself is actually very simplistic. Basically, like another thing, I'm not gonna read all of this, but basically throughout each of the chapters, each sections, you find two major forms of both collectibles and things to read. The facts, which is a sort of a data log, but it's historical. This actually explains historical stuff. And the mementos, which are the collectibles. You find them scattered all over the place. And they're actually based on real items that Ubisoft collected or received from donation, because they even held a contest for this. And they basically say what it is, like this is a dog tag from a French soldier, or this is a whistle from an Austrian soldier, stuff like that. Or a kukri from an Indian soldier. We would see a lot of things. Basically, it helps explaining a bit more about the wars and what was going on around the time. Specifically, some of these sections are tied to what's going on in the chapter. So if a chapter is talking about the taxis used in bringing soldiers to the war, the defects section will talk about that, among other things. It's always tied to that. And the collectibles gives a more of a challenging factor to it, because otherwise, like I said, the gameplay is very simplistic. It's more of a show thing rather than just do it. There are basically puzzle elements, but again, they're mostly simplistic and most of them crypt. scripted, so it's nothing too spectacular out of this. The focus of the game is more in showcasing, narrating the story. You have to treat it more like a Telltale kind of game.
Did this game come out before or after Child of Light?
It was the same year, 2014. Remember, it was the dark year of Ubisoft. But it's a bit irrelevant. They were around the same time.
I'm just wondering, Michael, if this was more of a tech demo and Child of Light was supposed to be more of the actual game.
Possible.
No, both games were made by a different development team. They have nothing to do with each other.
This one was made by Montpellier, Ubisoft Montpellier. The thing is that this one, unlike Child of Light, uses strictly the Ubisoft engine in the 2D form. There are no 3D models like where it was the case of Aurora in Child of Light.
This definitely feels like an indie game. And that's not an insult, but this definitely has the indie game feel to it.
It
Well, that
was
was kind of the whole point of
promoted,
this.
yeah.
The whole point of the Ubisoft engine was to create games with any sensibilities to appeal to people who like these kinds of things.
Yeah, well, I've heard a lot about Child of Light here and there. I don't hear much about this game.
There
Well,
was
the thing
some
is,
marketing,
Joe,
but not-
One at a time, one at a time.
Sorry, go ahead, Pedro.
Well, Joe, as Theo just demonstrated, this is not exactly a game you play for the gameplay.
Yeah.
And the sad part is that not a lot of people are willing to basically play a game that's basically a history lesson.
Wait.
Guys, I'm sorry. Hold on. Guys, I don't know, guys, but I think this game was made by French people.
Nah, you think?
Or people who just really enjoy France, but yeah, I mean, okay. I get that, it may be a history lesson, but there are plenty of bouts of entertainment media, games, or otherwise that can make a history lesson
Oh,
entertaining.
Ubisoft,
So,
I don't want to use Uplay.
Nobody likes you play, and that's the thing, Joe. I agree with you, Joe, but that's just the problem. Most people don't think like that. That's the problem.
well, I wouldn't even say it's a matter of most people think about that. It's just a matter of how good the game itself is actually
This also
good
Jova
at.
was not a game that Ubisoft wanted to push all the way. It was more like a project that they wanted to make. Anyway, Jova, here's some more history bombs just for you. We have one of our other protagonists, and yeah, reality sets in. So basically, our job as a meal is obviously to actually help the poor guy. By what? Using Steam to get these bullies away. Anyway, what I was saying, I lost my train of thought. Right. The game has been released for PlayStation 3, originally PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and
I think it was on the
PC.
Wii U as well, wasn't it?
No, actually, unlike Shadow of Light, this one was not for the Wii U. There was also a mobile version of both these, which makes sense. It adapts itself easily on the point-and-click format.
I'm beginning to... Oh, go on.
However, like the traditional, now remastered edition, which doesn't change anything because there's no DLC and no other graphical touch, was released for PS4, Xbox One, and now recently on Nintendo Switch.
The primary difference is that the more recent remasters have run on native 1080p, whereas this version that you're playing on the PS3 runs in 720p.
I think I'm starting to see the reason why this game may not be talked about as much. It's a combination of things. For one thing, granted, this is just first impressions, but something about this game definitely feels not as enticing as Child of Light. Maybe it's because of the duller art style. And I get it, it's to match war or whatnot. It's just...
It's more simplistic, that's also the major thing, Jova.
And simplistic doesn't always help it. Secondly, it feels like for some reason Ubisoft did not want to push this game as much as they pushed Child of Light for...
No, it costed even less, by the way. Child of Light, I think, was $40, while this was 20.
Which is weird because this is the one with all the French propaganda, so I'm actually surprised they didn't push this one more.
Well, actually, too, Child of Light at release was only like $25, if I remember correctly. I don't think it was 40. Remember, it was digital only when it first came out.
This was digital only as well.
Digital only doesn't always guarantee lower sales. In fact, if anything, it's the physical versions that get lower prices more often than not.
All right, to Wikipedia.
So anyway, though, so is this game mainly, I guess, just about you playing as guys who go to war?
Yeah.
So
And like, oh yeah, I was about to say this. Aside from the major narrations, the characters do not speak each other with proper voice acting. Instead, they have some minor gibberish, usually in the language they usually speak, and communicate with gestures and sometimes like.
So I'ma just call this and guess that we're gonna end up having to fight. God, what's the husband's name?
Carl.
Oh,
So I was thinking the same thing, Jova, because again,
You know, he's German.
citizens. You see, this story tells a lot of things. It's not super spectacular, but it did really surprise me. It is kind of, like I said, a bit of a reminder. No, I didn't say this. It's basically sort of a homage also to a movie like Paths of Glory, the one we commented upon, Jova.
I see. Also, are we ever gonna go back to the woman and her baby? I almost thought they were gonna be the main characters.
The story basically is introducing all the major characters, which we will be focusing on.
Oh, I think I get it. We're gonna see multiple plot lines with different
Yeah, exactly,
characters.
and multiple playable characters like Emil. Then there's the American soldier we're about to meet, Carl himself, and another one that we haven't met yet.
oh I've just checked here. It was only $15 when it first came out. Child of Light.
All right,
Let me check Valiant Hearts.
and there you go, instant friendship.
Oh, just
And he's an American, Jova. Basically, he learned about the war and just decided to give support on his own.
Ah, yes, this is before America was officially in the
21st,
war.
Yeah, exactly.
Emil's
And
regiment was sent to
we will
fight
learn
against the
also,
71st
thanks to the
German
letters that
Division,
he's writing,
led by
why
Baron von
he
Dorf.
wants to
The general cheer of the first
help in
hours
the war.
dissipated into the fear of first combat.
So, poor Emil has been chosen as the flag bearer.
Oh,
which-
right. Yeah, a bit of
At the
history here.
beginning, in case you need a small history lesson, World War I started like any traditional war, so bayonets and traditional charges. Here's the problem. The warlord in the meantime had developed very new interesting crafty tools like machine guns. So a war of that type was very outdated and resulted in a lot of people dying.
Oh, not only did France have outdated weapons, they also dressed in bright, flashy colors, which made for incredibly easy targets.
Targets, yeah. Camouflage was not a thing. It was a thing in general, Jova. There was this idea that you needed to recognize your teammates, so the uniform had to be on a specific color.
And there's a way to do that without pretty much painting yourself as a neon target. Again, France were a bit slow to get that message. And they suffered greatly for it.
Yeah. The Western Front, I can understand why they chose to focus on the Western Front, France aside, because it was really the one that suffered the most throughout the entire war.
So, is this part actually playable, or is
Yeah,
this...
you need to dodge the fire until you get here.
And Emil dies, and that's the end of the game.
Surprisingly, no. The game will actually tell you immediately now what happened. But it still results in a massive loss.
Mm-hmm.
And what a surprise it was, Carl's regiment.
Wait,
Miss
so
Marie
they
Cheyenne.
do end up fighting him, in
Private
a
Emile
way.
Cheyenne
Yeah.
from the 150th Infantry Regiment was wounded by enemy fire on August 20th.
He was just wounded.
He has been
Unfortunately, he
captured by
was
the enemy.
taken. Now he has been taken
Hopefully,
prisoner by the
We
Germans.
shall receive news from
Of
him
course,
soon.
Carl was nice enough to send her a letter. So, okay, we know Carl was her husband. What was Emil to her?
Fred,
Father.
Ah.
originally from America.
There you go. Now
enlisted
our next protagonist.
voluntarily in the French forces at the start of the war. Behind his bravery hid a man already devastated by the war's effects. A man with one sole obsession: punish those who had destroyed his life.
Yep.
Wrong
He's all about
place, wrong
revenge.
It
time.
was at the Battle of the Marne that Freddy finally picked up the trail of the regiment.
And yes, we have an arch nemesis for this game, Baron von Dorf.
Oh, wait. Hutzendorf?
No, it is still a made-up character, but anyway, there you go. This is explained. A couple of Americans actually enlisted voluntarily in the French army before America actively joined the conflict.
Sit down, kids. You have to learn something.
It is still.
It's not too bad, but it's fine enough, honestly. I can see though this
I'm fine. I'm fine as well. I'm just joking.
Oh no. I definitely can see where you would come from, though. And like, well, I think
it's a case similar to other edutainment games, like Dr. Trek. If you don't care about the history lesson, you're most likely not gonna have a good time.
I will give Dr. Trek this. You can technically skip the lessons, and
Yeah.
Dr. Trek wasn't exactly focused around them. Here is sort of like that, only a bit of a weaker case, where here it feels like it's blatant history lessons.
It's clearly built as a history lesson first and as a game later. It's that.
Yes. Whereas without the Trek, for all the problems that I had with that game, to be fair, it did have like the history stuff was tucked there in the data log, but it was only for those who wanted to. We didn't really need to read it.
I think this game would have benefited greatly from doing sort of the Eternal Sonata approach.
Having them separated from sections. Anyway, Freddy is basically a saboteur. What does this mean? He specializes in explosive and cutting away barbed wire with his scissors.
Nice.
Anyway, like I mentioned, also the characters will occasionally have lead with the diaries that they write. And this helps flesh them more a bit. We have, as you can see, Emil, Freddy, Carl, Carl's wife, and Emil's daughter, and a girl we haven't met yet, but we'll meet her soon enough.
Oh, we haven't met him. Wait, the wife is Emil's daughter, of course, right? Almost forgot.
Yeah.
So, in terms of, the updates to the journal, would you say that the constant pausings ever feel intrusive to the game, or would you say...
You don't have to, I just do it on my own for the sake of this playthrough. You can breeze this game without pausing a single time if you want.
Okay, then.
It's just a choice that I decide to do because sometimes I wanted to actually read some of those. I do believe they have some value of importance.
Oh, I have no qualms with that. But is this one of those cases where, like, if you don't check the journal at a certain point, you'll never get to see that certain entry ever again, so you kind of have to constantly check?
No. Actually, the game is very generous of that. Even if you, when you clear the game, you have a chapter select and all your progress are retained. So you can restart any chapter that you want and see the diaries that you collected and the items that you collected. This makes also collecting anything actually really easy.
Well, I meant more so in the sense cycle, can you check the journal at any point during any chapter, or does it have to be during a certain chapter? Like, okay.
Oh no, it has to be for a certain chapter for certain things that happen. It's also for the items that you get, and if you don't get all the items in a chapter, you don't get to see all of their description. But again, you can select each single section of a chapter again and replay it all you want. And all of these are paced in incredibly short range. So you can clear one of them in like 2 minutes. And if you miss something, you can easily replay it back.
That's fine.
I think Joel might have a good point that it probably would have been better if the game would have just had an archive thingy where you can recheck all of the entries of the journal that are saved in your archive. I think that probably would. A lot of games do that, so I think the game could have easily done that if you wanted. Well, I mean, when I played the game back when it came out, like I just paused every single time. And I personally don't mind doing that, but yeah, I can understand why someone would really like having to pause the game every 2 minutes every time the journal gets updated.
Yeah.
It can be a bit annoying, yeah.
Anyway, as you can see, the part of the gameplay is also throwing objects and the different properties that they have, like boomsticks that you can use to create explosion of some kind, or simple objects that you can use to either unlock stuff like ladders, or distract enemies to take them out in a stealth fashion. There we go. Also, you get these comic book style of panels from time to time, which showcase, for example, imminent danger. In this case, Freddy has to traverse from minor trench to trench in order to avoid the German soldiers' machine gun, in order to take out the base. Yeah. And by the way, you don't really have a health system, one hit and you're dead. But to be fair, the game is otherwise incredibly easy, so it kind of makes sense that you will not have to use a traditional health system of some kind. It also helps with the quote-unquote realism. And yes, he has his own Zeppelin, because why not?
Alright.
The game also, as far as the score is concerned instead, there were two main composers, Ian Livingstone and Peter McConnell, sorry. Ian, I don't remember specifically what it did, but Peter is actually a veteran for video games. He worked on the Sly games, a lot of LucasArts games like Monkey Island, Sam & Max, or the Star Wars games, and more recently on other stuff that Tim Schafer did, like Broken Age. So he actually knows what to do. The thing is that still there are a lot of licensed tracks in the, not in the sense of songs, but sorry, royalty-free music, basically. Occasionally, you will get like a musical, an orchestral piece based on something famous like the Flight of a Bumble. It will make sense in context. Anyway, in this case, you have to use fruit, or vegetable, I guess, to allure the soldier. I'm guessing they couldn't think of any better item to use.
There we go. Too bad we can use the.
Alright, I'm back. What I missed?
Just in time for see Freddy basically soloing the entire base.
Oh, he's gonna die, isn't he?
You see, Jova.
From British forces.
Oh!
This is one of those stories that will tell that some will live, some will die. You don't know who.
Let me guess, his nemesis wasn't there.
Considering, you
He
know,
fled away before he could strike. Anyway, there you go. This ultimately started what World War I is famous for, the trenches.
Carl's
regiment
People
retreated to the
stuck
outskirts
in
of
these
Neuchâtel.
glorified holes in the ground, forced to a war of attrition that never went anywhere and killed a lot of people. So of course the Germans are so stereotyped.
Too bad we'll never find Kirk Douglas in here.
And also they have someone as a hostage, but more on that later. And oh, look at that, a dog.
You?
Yeah, it is. Remember, he's been arrested by the Germans. So
Oh, I know.
You can see that he has shackles on his feet. There you go, 6 million prisoner of war between. So not all enemies that were found by a rival country were killed, but prisoners were more like a liability for a front than anything. So either they were used for something, or they were just killed. The war was that brutal, fortunately, like that. But they were also the prisoners who actually were able to, work. In this case, were slaves. They were allowed to write letters back home if they wanted, because the postal system for war was actually efficient for what they were supposed to do. So even something like a prisoner's letter was a minor inconvenience.
figure.
This also premiered the Third World War meant a lot in this case because this premiered also external troops in support. We already mentioned the Americans, but in this case, thanks to the Commonwealth deal, Great Britain got help from some of the colonies like India in this case, and we will see that also later.
It's funny, really, because before World War One, wars in general were seen almost more as business as usual. You know, try and get some land here, try and get some money there. You know, I mean, sure,
and resolve things the fastest way possible. And fortunately, this applied also here because a great misconception that people had is that the war would have ended before the Christmas of 1914. Didn't happen.
Yeah. Awkward. I mean, we'd had brutal wars before, like the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, which is considered the bloodiest war, but oh boy, this
was the first major reminder of at the point of when human civilization had reached. The main deterrent here were obviously the tools that were invented, like the new types of weapons or bombs that changed radically how war was fought from before. Anyway, Emil's task is what else to bring bratwursts to the Germans. Not just that, the way these are prepared is questionable for me. Keep in mind, I never prepared them myself, but if Germans really eat this kind of thing in the process, we'll see. But look at that, there you go. Carl actually recognizes Emil and doesn't bold yell against him because, you know, father-in-law.
Yeah.
Dearest Papa, we live in a climate of uncertainty.
Yeah, the Germans have
Germans use
occupied
people
Saint Mihiel, the
as
town
human shields against the
his
French
family
bombers.
was living.
I hope the Germans treat you well, and that your wound has healed. Your grandson sent you kisses. I sent you a picture of him. All my love. Please write soon.
awkward.
Yeah. Oh well, back to work.
So does Emil know that Carl's part of the regiment that captured him?
Yeah, we just talked to him.
Ah.
So here's how it works. It's a small puzzle. First get the water, then set it on fire as it's still there, and then drop the bratwurst. Then the water turns yellow. I don't know.
That can't be healthy.
Well, it was war. They had to eat. People ate. Oh, look at that! The Brits have arrived. So obviously, the best thing to do is actually take shelter in something that can protect you from the cannons.
Yeah.
And this introduces us to the thing that connects all of these characters together, the dog.
Really?
Who's probably going to die, I'm sure.
His name is Walt, and it brings a big novelty to the game. You basically give him orders, and he can do a lot of things for you. He can dig things up, including collectibles. He can hold objects and bring them to other people, and he can distract guards that you need to pass through stealthily.
So would you say that the dog is like, the game's main consumer-grabbing gimmick?
Kinda. Well, you need it to. Oh, there you go. Carl has fled already with the rest of the regiment. The game will teach you immediately how it works. Basically, the dog is used for sections where your character cannot proceed. So obviously, you need him to use for something else. In this case, get the lever that was on the other side. And through different combinations of things like fate or just bad luck, the dog will basically interact with all of the main characters in some fashion.
It should be interesting.
It's also a good thing that the dog is from the medical unit, so it has a survival instinct and it knows how how to deal with people, like getting them out of danger.
Yeah.
Our dog was more crap from an actual live dog.
It wasn't that
goodness.
far off. Code Ghost was 2013, I think.
Ah, God. I'll never forget the stupid HD craze that came from stuff like that. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm all for having games look great, but something about the PS4 and Xbox One's era made some people a bit downright stupid. Ultra HD Brotherhood notwithstanding.
The Dawn metric was a major deterrent for the Xbox era.
Yeah.
And where is he now? Well, nobody knows.
It's.
But
I
Tio,
have to
Tio,
admit,
Tio, Tio,
I have to
I'm-
admit, I kind of miss his shit-eating grin because, like, it was so stupid.
Oh yeah, here's another mechanic. Emil now will use mostly as a weapon that big spoon that he used for cooking purposes, but it's the perfect tool for digging through soft terrains. So part of the gameplay will consist of you having to dig through different. Don't use it where are bombs though, because that kill.
Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of these Whoa, how did that dog warp down there?
The game has these convenient holes that the dog can use to traverse. And there you go. That is actually the winner of the contest that Ubisoft made. This is an actual object that was held by an actual soldier, Corporal Lucien Daufurmantel, great-grandfather of Benoit Thiedres, from melted cartridge case. Basically, soldiers tended to use stuff like ammo as modified ammo, you know, scrap ammo and stuff like that for mementos or small object purposes to give them comfort. We will see more of them as the game will progress. And this was one of them. It was actually retrieved by the descendant of the corporal, and there you go. It was sent to Ubisoft.
Aww.
Yeah, that's another thing. Every time you retrieve an object, the character will always make sure to pet the dog. Like I said before, Jova, where you were gone, the score is mostly composed by two people. Only one of them I know is that famous. He's called Peter McConnell. You don't know if you know. He basically worked most of the time for LucasArts. LucasArts stuff. Ever since the old era, like 7 Max, the Star Wars games. I think also one of the Indiana Jones games.
Interesting.
However,
Very
some
interesting.
of the score is probably the main soundtrack that has been rearranged by one of these two people. I really kind of appreciate also the visuals. Like this game takes the approach of Limbo, or where the character traverses through a terrain where in the back something is happening and you're more focused on that than the character itself. Here you go. This one is a compass. Easy enough. Ah, there you go. That's what happens. Too. Trust me, in later sections of the game it becomes very infuriating, especially because, at least on the PS3, moving the analog in the direction you want Emil to dig is actually more difficult than it looks. I don't know
May
why.
have to do with that 6-axis bit put into the
Oh.
controller.
Sausage.
Uh-oh.
And of course, the dog is immediately interested.
Unfortunately, there was barbed wire in the middle.
Oh dear.
And of course, let's just have more bad stuff happening at the same time.
Oh, come on.
So how we will get out of this one? And now for someone completely different.
The British troops continued their attack on Neuve-Chapelle.
Wow, that was a
Their
tease.
next objective, take back Port Arthur.
Which means more saboteur stuff for Freddy. Along with the Indian hired troops. There you go. Like I said, while the sections of the chapters themselves are shorts. Some of them switch between characters in a whim, but they still share the same data log stuff that you have tied to the chapters. So even if you switch to another, you can always check and see if you have effectively switched another section of it, or it's still the previous one. These also have to understand where the collectibles may be, because they are actually fairly paced in between the beginning, the middle, and the end of its chapters. There you go. French coins. The salary was bad, like $5 a day.
Yeah.
Currently, it's. To be like the sad thing also is that they didn't really have use for it, because the war torn asunder all the lands that it touched, so money was just as good as any other piece of metal that you could find.
Hmm.
So for these sections, Freddy actually has to use specific set of dynamites that the Indian guy is suggesting him to use, either with two candles, 3 or 4. There you go. Then you need to move the platform to the next section of the lines that we're about to destroy, and give the next set of dynamite. Again, easy enough as a puzzle. Here we go.
Yeah, let's get out of here before we do that.
Thankfully, it's up to Freddy actually pulling the trigger here, so... Yeah. Anyway, just checking, don't worry. Oh yeah, the next collectible is actually tied again to the inner troop, a kukri knife. If you don't know, it's a specific type of knife that it has that curved blade. It was basically their trademark weapon. There you go. Anyway, we actually ended up inside of an artillery position of Germany, and look at that. That's exactly what was gonna happen a second ago. So, well, time to put the cannon to use.
All right. Wow.
Here we go. See, the dog is fine.
It's fine.
I think.
Yeah, I just need to remove the barbed wire and that's it. There you go.
Merci, mon ami.
There we go.
So basically means that the meal will now travel with Freddy for a while, because they actually have the same destination in common.
God forbid that Carl ends up being the arch nemesis that Freddy's looking for.
I don't know, we'll see, Jova. In the meantime, see you for the next part.
See you then.
Yeah.